Cutting weight comes with the territory for those who have chosen mixed martial arts as their profession. Of course, as we have seen over the years, the scale can be a treacherous nemesis for some fighters. In truth, there have been several athletes who appear to be in more danger on the scale than they did inside the UFC octagon. So for this video, we'll be taking a look at a list of times in which a certain fighter seriously struggled with their battle on the scales. As always, if you guys enjoy this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Now, without further ado, and ranked in no particular order, let's take a look at 10 highly disturbing UFC weigh-ins. Number 10. Conor McGregor, UFC Fight Night 59. Conor McGregor is the biggest name in mixed martial arts and one of the most successful combat sports athletes of all time. That said, even the Irishman has struggled with weight at various points in his career, particularly during his time at featherweight. McGregor was always a massive featherweight, but getting down to 145 pounds was never easy for the notorious one. At UFC Fight Night 59, McGregor was scheduled to face German kickboxer and UFC veteran Dennis Siver. To prove that he could make championship weight, McGregor decided to strip the additional pounds allotted for non-title fights and tip the scales at an even 145. While the future two-division champ made weight, he looked visibly depleted while standing on the scale. However, perhaps even more disturbing than the weigh-in itself was McGregor's appearance during a pre-fight interview where the Irishman's face was barely recognisable. That said, the cut didn't appear to affect his performance as McGregor put Siver away with relative ease, winning the fight via a second-round TKO. Number 9. YOEL Romero, UFC 225. One fighter who has had his fair share of struggles with weight is former Olympic wrestler YOEL Romero. In fact, his inability to make weight quite literally cost him the interim UFC middleweight championship. At UFC 221, Romero knocked out Luke Rockhold in the third round of their fight. However, since Romero was almost 3 pounds over the middleweight limit as they headed into the contest, he wasn't awarded the interim strap. His next bout should have been a title fight against Robert Whittaker at UFC 225. But unfortunately, the Soldier of God's battle with the scale continued, when at the UFC 225 weigh-in, we saw a visibly exhausted Romero struggle to even get onto the scale. Unfortunately, after 2 attempts, he once again failed to make the 185-pound mark, which ended any possibility of winning the title the following day. To make matters worse, Romero even struggled to walk out without the aid of his coaches. Surprisingly, despite the health scare, Romero put on a Fight of the Year performance, narrowly losing to Whittaker via a split decision. Number 8. CYNTHIA CALVILLO, UFC Argentina. San Jose's CYNTHIA CALVILLO is a star on the rise in the UFC women's division, with the 33-year-old currently sporting an impressive 9-1-1 record. That said, making weight has admittedly been a struggle throughout her career. The talented grappler's issues with weight were on full display leading up to her Fight Night bout in 2018. During the weigh-ins, a weary CYNTHIA gave officials a scare when she nearly fell off the scales and appeared to have trouble keeping her eyes open. She would go on to end up missing weight by 2 pounds, and as a result, be forced to forfeit 20% of her purse. While she may have looked terrible on the scales, she still managed to submit her opponent in the very first round. Following a second failed weight cut at UFC on ESPN 7, she decided to move up to the flyweight division, where she recently defeated the top contender in Jessica Eye. Number 7. Daniel Cormier, UFC 200. Daniel DC Cormier is a former two-division champ who has competed in both the light heavyweight division as well as heavyweight. That said, the Louisiana product has struggled to make the light heavyweight limit from time to time. Of course, there was the infamous towel incident in which many consider Cormier to have bent the rules in order to make weight. However, there was also the weigh-ins prior to UFC 200 in which DC looked severely depleted leading up to his showdown with Anderson the Spider Silva. While cutting down to 205 is normally a struggle for DC, it appeared to be especially true in this case. The weight cut may have been tough, but the fight with Silva was anything but. DC used his wrestling skills to smother his opponent en route to earning a unanimous decision victory. Number 6. Kenny Florian, UFC 136. Kenny "Kenflo" Florian is a former UFC title challenger who has competed in 4 different weight classes during his time with the UFC. Following his debut at middleweight, the former Ultimate Fighter contestant made a brief stop at welterweight before settling in at lightweight. The 4th degree black belt enjoyed a great deal of success as a lightweight and unsuccessfully challenged for the title on 2 separate occasions. In a last-ditch effort to finally capture some UFC gold, Ken Flo decided to move down to the featherweight division. In doing so, he would need to weigh in roughly 40 pounds less than he did during his promotional debut when he competed at middleweight. Florian admitted the drop to featherweight was tough. Still, when it came time to face Jose Aldo for the title, he did in fact successfully make championship weight. That said, the now-retired star looked a shell of the man that fans had been accustomed to seeing when he stepped on the scale. Unfortunately for Florian, the 3rd time wasn't the charm in regards to capturing UFC gold, as Aldo won the contest via unanimous decision. Number 5. Aspen Ladd, UFC on ESPN Plus 13. One of the most disturbing weigh-ins in recent memory involved bantamweight prospect Aspen Ladd. At UFC on ESPN Plus 13, Ladd was scheduled to face former champ Jermaine Durandamy. However, following the weigh-ins, many pundits wondered if Ladd could or even should make the walk to the cage. When Ladd stepped on the scales, she was clearly in pain, and it appeared as though she may pass out at any moment. Amazingly, the up-and-comer still managed to make weight and compete. Even after her weigh-in, Aspen Ladd was left trembling as she struggled to pose for the cameras. While it's unclear how much the cut affected her performance, Ladd would lose the first fight of her career in dramatic fashion. Following the fight, the 25-year-old's license was suspended by the California State Athletic Commission. The suspension was due to the fact that Ladd had gained a whopping 18% of her body weight between weigh-ins and the day of the contest. Number 4. Jose Aldo, UFC 218. During his lengthy run as one of the all-time greats of the UFC featherweight division, former champ Jose Aldo had never missed weight. And since moving down to bantamweight, Aldo has continued to make weight successfully. That said, the Brazilian came very close and even gave onlookers a bit of a scare leading up to his UFC 218 showdown with Max Holloway. Roughly 36 hours out from his fight with Max Holloway, Aldo stepped up to the scales looking sicklier than ever. After initially missing weight by a pound, a distraught Aldo literally laid his head on the scale and appeared to be in visible pain. However, after taking a moment to recover, the 2-time title holder gave it another try and stepped back onto the scale. The second time around, he weighed in at 145 and thus was able to compete for Holloway's featherweight strap. Unfortunately, Aldo would end up losing the rematch with Holloway via a 3rd round TKO. Number 3. Max Holloway, UFC 218. Interestingly enough, Aldo's UFC 218 opponent Max Bless Holloway didn't look much better during their pre-fight weigh-in. Prior to setting foot on the scale, Max Holloway needed to strip his clothes and bring out the towel just to make the required weight. In fact, one of the men holding the towel, who happened to be Justin Gaethje, even nearly caused a wardrobe malfunction. Fortunately, at the end of the day, there were no wardrobe malfunctions and Holloway would end up weighing in at the featherweight title limit of 145 pounds. While it's normal for fighters to cut several pounds in water weights, it was painfully obvious for everyone watching that Max was far more dehydrated than he should have been. As for the contest, as mentioned previously, the Hawaiian would end up scoring a TKO victory over Aldo in the 3rd round. Number 2. Kevin Lee, UFC 216. The Motown phenom Kevin Lee is a fighter who has struggled with weight throughout his MMA career. In fact, he's missed weight a total of 4 times since his professional debut back in 2012. Even when Lee wins his battle with the scale, the struggle is usually pretty obvious. Prior to his bout with Tony Ferguson for the interim lightweight title, Kevin Lee nearly missed out on the opportunity to compete for the gold. After missing weight by a pound the first go around, and looking as though he was about to pass out on the scale, Lee was given the additional time to address the issue. On his second try, a sick-looking Kevin Lee tipped the scale at an even 155 pounds, and was thus eligible to win the title. Of course, his opponent Tony Ferguson ended Lee's championship hopes by securing a triangle choke submission in round 3. Number 1. Johny Hendricks, UFC 200. In his prime, Johny Big Rig Hendricks was an elite-level mixed martial artist, who briefly held the UFC welterweight title back in 2014. Unfortunately, during the latter portion of Hendricks' career, the former NCAA Division I wrestler just couldn't seem to make weight consistently. In total, Hendricks missed weight for 3 of his last 5 professional bouts. Even after moving up to middleweight, the former champ still couldn't get it done on the scales, and was 3 pounds heavy for his showdown with Tim Boach back in 2017. However, it was Johny Hendricks' UFC 200 weigh-in which particularly stood out amongst fans. At the weigh-ins leading up to the event, Hendricks' hands began shaking uncontrollably prior to stepping onto the scale, which made for a disturbing sight to say the least. Even after removing his undergarments, the depleted former welterweight king was still a quarter of a pound over the welterweight threshold. After forfeiting 20% of his earnings, Hendricks would ultimately lose his UFC 200 fight with Kelvin Gastelum via a unanimous decision. As always, if you guys enjoyed this video, then please be sure to let me know by leaving a like and subscribing to our channel. Apart from that, thanks so much for watching guys, and we'll see you on the next video.